But before we do anything else, we have to acknowledge the elephant in the room, or I guess the kaiju in the room. What is this new Godzilla shirt you have on?
I was visiting my parents in Bad Axe, Michigan, and I was up there with my family for the week. And we were doing some grocery shopping at Myers Thrifty Acres in Bad Axe. And
sure, Myers Thrifty Acres.
Yes.
If there's a more Midwestern supermarket name, I would like to hear it. Myers
Thrifty Acres, not just spendthrift acres. These are thrifty acres that Myers has.
Sure.
And of course, we needed supplies. You know, we were going to do a cookout. We needed burgers and brats and all that kind of stuff. And my wife and I were walking through the store with my sister-in-law along, and just chatting as you do. And all of a sudden, I see these graphic T-shirts just sitting there in the corner, and I see Godzilla staring back at me. And it was this gorgeous art from the Godzilla comic book. On the back, it's got three panels.
Really pretty. Yeah, it's really pretty artwork.
Gorgeous art. And I looked at it and held it up. It was $12. And I looked at my wife. I said, I'm not buying it. I gotta get it.
How can you not at $12? And you have been, your whole life you've been a long-standing Godzilla fan, right? How did that get started?
From the time that I first saw him, I mean, listen, old manning it up over here, back in the day when they would have movies on the weekends on the broadcast
movie of the week
channels.
With the guy sitting in the chair. Yes.
Commander USA's groovy movies and all that stuff. That they would have every now and again Godzilla movies, and I was captivated by it. I don't know what it was that appealed to me. And by the way, this was obviously solid in the rubber suit era of Godzilla, and it's just something about the storylines of this big huge creature. I was never so much a part of those. You know, Godzilla comes to Tokyo and smashes everything and then swims away while the people run and scream. But the ones where he fought other monsters, sometimes to protect the citizens of Tokyo. I loved that schmaltz so much, I ate it up with a spoon.
Well, as is evidenced by the fact that you, in a Midwestern supermarket, seized the shirt for $12. And by the way, $12 for a T-shirt. I love Midwest pricing because
not bad.
People should know that there was one moment when Brad was in Bad Axe and I was a mere 3.5 hours away in South Bend, Indiana.
Yeah.
And I was like, with a short drive, we could meet in the middle.
Yeah.
We could both meet in the middle, but we didn't do it. Anyway, when I was in the Midwest, for the first time ever, I went to, what's it called, Cracker Barrel for breakfast?
Oh, yeah.
Cracker Barrel?
We made one stop at Cracker Barrel this past week, too.
So my two big takeaways from Cracker Barrel, Midwest Cracker Barrel breakfast are, A, you can get 700 pounds of food for $3 at Cracker Barrel in the Midwest. It's bonkers. Number two is, holy heck, is that place diabetes on a plate. It is so delicious. God. But everything on that is designed to kill you. Like, everything at Cracker Barrel is delicious, but it's going to drop you dead from a heart attack by the end of the meal.
So we ate at Cracker Barrel while we were on the road as well. And my wife, it turns all of a sudden, her jaw drops. And I go, what am I missing? She says, it's okay to look. She says, she points, she says, that picture on the wall, I swear to God, your mother has that in the family room. And I looked at it. It's not there anymore. We couldn't find it in the house, but I looked at it, and I know that my mom had that picture at one. It was one of those country craft, prints that looked like it's supposed to be a painting.
Sure. Yeah, because for those not familiar, Cracker Barrel does all this kind of faux Americana all around the wall, and it's like to the extreme they do the faux Americana. So it's a lot of farming equipment and photos and old street signs and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Old milk catalogs, milk crates, and all this stuff. If you want to take the Cracker Barrel experience and put a weird little twist to it, you got to go to Perkins. We stopped at a Perkins twice because for some reason it's become a family favorite of my kids. It's like a tradition to stop at Perkins for breakfast when we're on the road. We walk into this Perkins, and I swear to God, I am not exaggerating. It was a pretty brisk lunchtime crowd. We were the only people not using some sort of device to help us remain ambulatory. Everybody in there had a cane or a walker or a scooter or a wheelchair. It was amazing to feel like a little bit guilty out of being able to walk.
Yeah. You were the one Olympian in the room.
Yeah.
But honest to God, Cracker Barrel, my family's take on Cracker Barrel was, we walked out and my family goes, that is a place that has never seen a salad. And honest to God, I was like, well, the name is Cracker Barrel, not Salad Barrel. I mean, you go in getting what you get. On that note, everybody, I'm going to say hello and welcome to Comic Lab, the show about making comics.
And making a living from comics. I'm Brad Geiger, the cartoonist of Evil Inc. and the editor of the Webcomics Handbook.
And I'm his friend Dave Kellett, cartoonist of Drive and Sheldon and co-director of Stripped.
And this week's Hour of Comics Advice is made possible by your support at patreon.com/comiclab. So Dave, let's talk comics.
Let's talk comics, my friend. And before we do anything, we have to warm up the mic and pull up a chair, 2 chairs actually, because we are delighted to welcome 2 very special guests onto the show this week. Well, Brad, I can tell by your smile that you are very excited because we have 2 of the most delightful people in comics joining us on the show today. Greg Evans, Karen Evans, hailing from San Marcos, I would imagine today. Yes? Is that where we're hailing from, friends? And here to celebrate and talk about the fantastic achievement of 40 years of Luann, which is, I mean, that's so rare and wonderful landmark to hit. 40 years as a comic strip, running beautifully in newspapers all over the world, running not only in English, running in Spanish, running in other language, friends. I should ask you that before we get started. That's always fun to hear.
A handful, not a lot.
Well, I would describe it as anything more than English is a lot to me. So I think it's got to be tremendous fun to see it in Spanish or French or Portuguese or anything that you could see it in. Anyway, welcome to the show, my friends. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Brad. It's fun to be here.
We're excited.
Yeah.
So now 40 years, first of all, congratulations on both of our behalves. That's a tremendous achievement and one that I can't even imagine the quiet and joyful satisfaction that goes behind that. But when you look back over it, can we start with the submission process to syndicates? Because I remember a conversation we had once in your studio where you said you would send off the packets, and the frustration would build. And then eventually you packed it all up and if I remember correctly, you put it at the top of your closet and you're like, that's it. But do you remember before Luann what the early submissions were and what some of the subject matters were, what the titles were? Do you remember any of those from 42, 43 years ago, whenever it was?
I sure do, and part of the reason is because, well, I have a big scrapbook, of course, but when we were preparing for this 40th anniversary exhibit at the Comic-Con Museum, and I think we'll get to that, it required going back through a lot of old stuff. And so I have this huge folder of rejections. And I think my very first strip that I tried to do, it was just 2 talking heads making some joke. And that was it. And simple to draw, simple to do, because I was lazy. I wanted to make a lot of money with minimal effort. I didn't realize how that is a concept that wouldn't sustain over 2 weeks, let alone 40 years. It was just a dumb idea. And then I started trying to fill what I perceived as gaps on the comic page. So, oh, look, here's Hagar, but where's the circus clowns? Or there's another, So I was coming up with those kinds of conceptual ideas.
Yeah.
What I know about circus clowns, you could write on a gum wrapper. It was a struggle. I had a strip called Simi Heights, which was about inner city cast of characters and cops and prostitutes. I was trying to be very edgy and gritty and forward thinking and all of that. I had one called Maiden Voyage, which was 2 female roommates and about how they got along. I always seemed to lean toward female characters. I found them far more interesting. Men are one-dimensional and kind of not that interesting. Females are, I always say, men are like oranges. There's a thick skin and then just a mess underneath. Women are like onions, thousands of little thin layers and a lot of tears. So So anyway, and then Karen came along, and she was born. And at one point, when she was about 5 or 6, she was dressed up in Betty's. That's my wife. Betty's, dress and makeup and jewelry, and wobbling around in her high heels. And I thought, oh, hey, maybe I should do a strip about a saucy little girl. Now, in retrospect, I wish I would have made her have an imaginary tiger. And then
yeah. Sure.
We all swung and missed on that one.
It's so obvious now that we all see it. Yes, but yeah.
Anyway, in developing the idea, I changed the character into a 13-year-old. It just seemed like there was a lot more material at that age than at 6. And Luann was born. And for the first time, I was creating from my heart and not from my head. And that made all the difference.
Right.
Now, when you sent that off, was that an immediate yes from the syndicate, or did they put you into some kind of development type of deal?
I actually, with Maiden Voyage, Lee Salem kept that one for months, considering it. Finally sent it back with coffee mug rings around the edges of my original art, because I didn't know you were supposed to make copies. I sent original art.
Oh, Greg, you sent the original art. Oh God.
I have original Maiden Voyage strips with
with Lee Salem's coffee on it.
But other than that, no. Rejection. Luann, I got. I don't even think it was send us a second batch. I think they looked at the first batch of 6 weeks and said, we like this. And United Media offered me a NEA contract with the NEA division.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I didn't really want that, but they didn't want to give me the full syndication with United. So I turned down the NEA contract, but then was signed by News America or North America, whatever it was called back then, and they signed it. No development, nothing. Straight away that went out. Mm-hmm.
So now, for our listeners who may not know, like me, what's the difference between the syndicate contract and an NEA contract? What was holding you back from that?
Okay, NEA was a division of United Media where they had about a dozen strips in a package that they would sell to smaller newspapers that couldn't afford the a la carte big strips.
I see.
And I didn't want to be part of a little loser package. That's how I.
So you felt strongly enough about that you said, I'd rather have nothing at that point, because you didn't know the next one was going to come around. So you said,
yeah, it was a gamble.
Wow.
It was a gamble. Mm-hmm. But I wanted the big time. I wanted to be rich, so I went for I wanted the big time. Yeah. And I wanted to be at the same syndicate that Charles Schultz was at. That would have been awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Karen, growing up, was it, from your perspective, was it always natural to have this strip in your life? Like, can you, in a way, like, I'm sure you have been asked this question a billion times of like, what is it like to have the comic strip inspired by you and all that sort of thing? But is it the case where you kind of can't imagine a childhood any other way, that it's so natural to you that the other way seems weird?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a perfect thing to explain something. So the strip started, I was barely 6 years old when Luann debuted. So that's a pretty young age memory-wise. And prior to that, what I saw my dad do for a living was run a robot at entertainment events. So I already had a dad that basically worked from home, which was not the norm in 1985. Right. And was doing a career that was a little bit unusual. He had a kind of an R2-D2 looking robot named Maxwell, and he'd go out and do things like at Seaport Village down in San Diego, or corporate events, and tell jokes through this robot, and it played music and entertained. So that's what my dad was doing. And then he shifted over to this comic strip launching, which meant, from a kid's perspective, I always had a dad that was home, and he was either drawing at his drawing table in his studio or napping in a recliner. So I just thought, like any kid, whatever your dad does, like this is a normal dad thing.
That was working.
Right.
Well, now that I started working with him, that was one of the big aha moments about 10 years ago when I came on board to see about co-working, and I do the writing side of things. It was a real reveal that all those naps in the recliner were the hardest working parts, because the art takes a lot of time and thought and energy, but the idea generation and the story drafting and the dialogue, all the writing is the big heavy lift that feeds the art. So now I have a whole different appreciation, A, for napping, and B, how hard this work it really is. And, my dad, it was just what he did. So it wasn't until I was a little bit older. I mean, I knew growing up, and Luann was in the local paper, so our friends read it and my peers knew about it. And so you knew it was kind of special, but you had no larger context of like, this is an extremely odd career. And people that we were close to, or cartoonists that we had the chance to be friends with, those were just my dad's friends. No big deal. And now you're like, right. So not everyone goes, like, he was friends with Charles Schultz over time, and we would go up for the holidays and spend, Christmases with Sparky and at his ice
arena. Yeah.
So, that's not typical.
No, not at all. Can I just pause for a second, because I've been to Schultz's house and to the museum and to the ice arena. But what is the ice arena like at Christmas specifically? I've never been there at Christmas. Did they do a whole Snoopy on Ice type thing?
Yes. Oh my gosh, it was amazing. I don't know if they're still doing it.
They're not.
Snoopy on Ice. Yeah. Yeah. So Sparky had a big passion for skating and had this ice arena that was a community space. And at the holidays, they put on this incredible ice show with performers, top-notch performers, and Snoopy in full costume, skating around doing backflips on the ice. And then they decked out the space with, garland and lights, and they'd have dinner tables and hot chocolate. You could have like hot chocolate and cookies.
Oh, that's fantastic.
It was magical, just magical.
Yeah.
But Greg, you grew up in Southern California, didn't you? So when Schultz would ask you to come out on the ice, how that could not have been pretty to see for a northern Midwestern boy to see you on the ice, I'm sure.
We weren't allowed on the ice.
No.
You weren't allowed on the ice. Okay.
There were standards.
Yeah. No. My face would be on the ice if I was on.
There you go. Yeah. So now let's jump forward by 40 years, because it's a fun way to look back at it. So Luann, as a huge honor, and one that I'm really proud and happy for you both, is being exhibited and honored at the San Diego Comic-Con Museum, which is over in Balboa Park. Beautiful space, multi-level space, gigantic amount of square footage. And there is a special exhibit for running about Luann and its 40 years now through fall. But you had mentioned briefly going through 40 years, I'm sure, of work and creativity and output and original art and digital art at going through for this exhibit. What were the emotions that came over you going through 40 years of Luann for this exhibit?
God, I'm old.
All right. Well, that answers that.
I need another nap.
Yeah.
Well, when they first talked about it, we were so honored, and I assumed it would be under a stairwell in a back corner, just a little
off to the side. Yeah.
40-year. Hey, look. When we went down there to see the space, we were amazed. It's this big room, and we thought, wow, we got to fill this up. I mean, a comic strip is only, the size of a loaf of bread. How are we going to fill this up? So it took a lot of thought and going through a lot of material to find interesting stuff to put up.
And then it was hard. It was hard. There's 40 years, and we went from like, oh, what an honor to have a little bit of space at the museum to, oh no, this is a lot of space at the museum. To, oh, but our 40 years of work, his 40 years is way too much to fit into even this generous space. So how do you kind of curate that down? And we went through many, many, many conversations about what's the right thing. 'Cause I think neither one of us, and Dad in particular, was not interested to have a museum. You know, I'm going to the museum. I will start at day 1, and here's 40 years of chronological data points on this comic strip.
Right.
So we were kind of looking through at what jumped out, storylines that were significant to us or our readers, or strips that have stood out over time, or that we came across that you go, oh, this is such a good one. And then I think thinking about how much the strip has changed, how much the characters have changed, but how much the core of it hasn't changed.
Right.
It's kind of a cool angle to explore. Like there's a lot that's different over 40 years, but at the heart of it, it's still very much the same.
Following up on that, did you sort of, because I identify Luann as being, you know, about friendships and adolescence and identity and growing up. But did you end up sort of grouping things by theme across years? Was that the best way to describe how you did it, all on the walls?
That's a good answer. Mm-hmm. yes, that's what we did. Yeah, I don't know, Dad. Do you want to talk about the kind of 4?
Yeah. Well, like Karen said, we didn't want something stiff. We wanted something really fun and interesting and lively and colorful. And so we came up with this idea of sort of an introductory wall that would show a brief bit of the background of the history of the strip and some of the samples of the strips that we were talking about earlier that I had tried. And then we had a whole wall. We have a whole wall of how the major characters have changed over 40 years. So,
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So what they're showing us on screen, by the way, is a sort of, I would describe it, Brad, as a vertical transmogrification of different characters.
Like a flow chart. Yeah.
Yeah. So at the top, there's an old image, and at the bottom, there's a new image of the character. And in between, there's 4 strips from 4 different decades showing their evolution. And then on the third wall, it's divided into 3 parts by pillars. So we did a thematic breakdown of what's in the strip. So it's humor and drama and relationships. So we have ha and uh-oh and aw.
Oh, that's delightful.
And then the last wall is
it was standout storylines.
Yeah.
Standout storylines.
Yeah. Standout storylines. So we put up probably the one that Luann is most known for, if the strip ever goes down in some sort of a history, would be when she had her first period. So we had that one up there. We did a massive fashion show thing where we invited readers to send in fashions for the characters to wear, and we got how many? 16,000. I mean, we had a huge number of.
Wow!
And I reproduced some of those in the strip for, I think, 2 weeks. We ran that, and then Brad and Tony. Brad is Luann's brother. Long ongoing story about his development from a Oreo scarfing couch potato to a fireman, and along the way he meets Tony, the love of his life. And anyway, so they got married, and we did a big thing on that, and we invited readers to send in wedding dress designs on that one. And then the last little section on that is fan favorites. We asked fans to tell us what's their favorite strip and why. Because we have a huge fan, I don't know if huge is the right word, but certainly devoted fan base at Go Comics and other places. But they really care deeply about the strip and the characters. And So we wanted to somehow acknowledge that. I think the thing that's been unique about Luann over the years is it started out as just sort of a gag-a-day girl strip and her problems with her hair and boys and stuff.
Right.
But it's evolved beyond that into sort of a story-driven, character-driven. And I think of all the strips, we've probably done more reader interaction in one way or another. We've had a lot of reader interaction.
And I remember that from my own formative years, which, by the way, just in friendship, I should say, my own childhood, there was such a love for Luann growing up. And it's been such a joy coming to know you as an adult, because it was such a joy-filled, informative strip for my own childhood. So not childhood, but like my formative teen 20s years, in terms of wanting to be a cartoonist. But speaking of growing up and changing, though, can I ask you, because, and I might have the timeline wrong, but I feel like for the first 15 or so years, Luann stayed a fixed age. And then she started to age, and there was the change made. And Brad and I were talking about this before we hit record, because I can see a lot of different impetus starting into that process. Like at the 15-year mark, you're really like, oh, I'm starting to get tired of X, whatever X is in a comic strip. No matter who you are, we've all been there with a comic strip that's gone on long enough where you're like, I'd like to change it up. You feel the mood. But this is one of those changes that once you make the move, you kind of can't go back. She can't go back to being 13 again once she becomes 16, 17, 18. I mean, you could have, but that would have been weird. So like, how tricky was that? Well, I guess I should ask, what was the impetus for the decision? And then how tricky was that decision when you made it?
Well, I can talk about the first change, and then Karen can talk about the later changes, but you're right. Luann was 13 for many, many years. And then at some point, I decided it's time to age her. So she became 16. She had a birthday. She changed her hairstyle. But fundamentally, the strip stayed the same. It was set in high school, had the same characters, nothing beyond that changed. It just opened up some new possibilities for dating and so forth like that.
Right.
And yes, once you do that, then you're done with all those themes that you dealt with before. But after a number of years, you feel like, I've done all the hair pimple jokes I could possibly do.
Yeah.
So let's move on. Then Karen came on board, and everything just
ruined everything.
Went.
Well, let's talk about that.
I brought all those layers. He was crying.
I'm the one with the
Good callback. No, but let's talk about that. So how did that come about, and what is the workflow? How was the workflow at first versus the workflow now between the two of you? But let's start about that at the beginning then. How did the first steps of working together start?
Okay, I'll address that. Let me finish telling about Luann going from 16 to 19, because these.
Oh, sure, of course, yeah.
So Luann became 13. Part of what you're not sharing, Dad, is that the characters, once he shifted, and it was pretty early on. He always thinks like, oh, I started Gag a Day and did that forever. But when we were looking back through archives, some of these dramatic storylines that he did were surprisingly early. So he's always been drawn to storytelling. And once you give your characters a world of story, they start to evolve, because story, it requires evolution in a way that Gag does not. So he kind of reached a point where Luann was not really acting like a 13-year-old anymore. She had outgrown the age she was supposed to be. So it made sense to turn her to 16. So she had been 16 for some time when the idea of me maybe joining the creative team came along. And it came along, I grew up with this in my household. It was very normal. I've always liked telling story myself. I'm more drawn towards writing than drawing. So I think that's part of why it never dawned on me to be like, I'm going to be a cartoonist, because you associate it with it's drawing first. I went on to get a degree in English. I was teaching at the time, and we were in the car. Dad and I were in the car driving through Los Angeles to a birthday party, talking about the comic and how it's this amazing legacy. And these are like family members to us. These are real people. And wouldn't it be amazing if someone in our real life family was primed to sort of help keep this going at some point? And who and how would that be? And then it was like there was an elephant in the car with us holding a world's largest light bulb that went on. And we both sort of went, wait, the artist and the writer don't have to be the same person.
Right.
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 I remember just being sort of astounded that had never dawned on us. And so then the conversation became, well, maybe you could help with some of the writing and see. And within a few weeks, we gave it a try. And it was kind of shocking. I thought it just kind of clicked well. I mean, it took me and is still taking me time to refine my writing skills. But as far as, obviously, these are characters I grew up with. Like, I know it, I get it, I've seen it, I'm saturated in it. So that was that. And within the first year, I was still doing my school job. At that point, I was basically a vice principal at a middle school. And I didn't leave because I was a vice principal at a middle school. Let's just clarify. I loved what I was doing. But after doing this work with Dad for a year, we kind of had the conversation, if this creative work is going to continue, it doesn't fit well into the demands of this other life I'm leading. So I chose to conclude my official education career and dive in with Luann. And then I've been doing a lot of other side hustles because I'm just a busy, busy, busy person, much to Dad's tearful chagrin. He found his one passion and does it purely. Like, this is what he was meant to do. And I'm like, I love it. And I'm doing this. And also this neat opportunity came up and I said, yes.
Was that one of the ways that you became the president of the NCS?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Just a small task.
Just a little something.
Yeah, and leading up to that opportunity, it was because I'd already been volunteering through the NCS with other things and at the Comic-Con booth with the National Cartoonist Society and helping organize the NCS Fest in Huntington Beach in I just can't keep to myself.
That still gets talked about as one of the best events ever. It came up just organically in a conversation not so long ago that so many people had so much fun at that.
Hey, gang, if you're listening while you work, take a minute to stand and stretch.
And while you're doing that, we'll tell you why you should join us on Patreon.
Yeah, because when you do, you'll get hours and hours of podcasts that we've recorded just for backers.
And exclusive Patreon posts that go even deeper on Comic Lab topics.
And you'll get access to our exclusive Discord server, a thriving community of professional cartoonists.
So you can support the show you love and get tons of actionable resources for your own cartooning.
And ho Nelly, if you want even more comics goodness in your life, check out the new drawing show that we're doing with our pal Kevin McShane over at wrongwayshow.com. That's wrongwayshow.com.
In each episode, we'll show you how to draw your favorite cartoon characters the wrong way.
Now, everybody, let's talk comics.
I want to backtrack just a little bit because a troublemaker that I am. Karen says, I started co-writing and it just clicked. And then later on, she says, this is Dad's one thing and he's a purist and it's the one thing he's meant to do. There had to have been growing pains when you started working together. There's no other way. Just knowing myself as I am, and maybe I'm projecting my psychosis onto you.
Curmudgeonliness.
But I love my sons dearly. And I've got a son who is, two sons, funny as heck. One of them is a great funny writer. The other is a great story writer. All of which to say, I don't think I'd ever want to work with them. What were the growing pains like? What was that first time when you came upon Loggerheads and you had to find a way around and through that conflict?
Well, there were some false starts, I would say. At first we get together physically and brainstorm and then try to construct the week and write the dialogue together. And that gets down to parsing words and wait, let's put and instead of but, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right.
It wasn't the way to do it. And so then we tried this, we tried that, and now we sort of settled on where she does we brainstorm the big picture stuff, and then she breaks it out into weeks, and then she writes the weeks and sends them to me, and I peel off 9,000 layers of onion skin to get to the messy core, and then I draw it.
Now, is that what that whiteboard behind you is all about? Because I got to tell you, I'm squinting. I'm trying to find out your secrets.
He's trying to read ahead in the strip. Yes, is what he's doing over there.
Is that what that whiteboard is all about? Is you brainstorming together, and is that part of that process?
No. So we're at my house, and we're in my studio space, and this is the obligatory. Everybody needs a novel they're working on.
Oh, all right.
The middle school teacher, and had actually with Dad came up with the most hilarious idea ever that we just laughed our heads off. And then later, I don't know why it was so funny exactly, but it was. And this has been a 15 plus year drag around young adult fantasy adventure novel that I've been writing in my
fantastic
time, which I haven't had any spare time. So it's just on the wall.
I am suitably excited for this.
I love that though. And we will not ask specific details. Yeah, that's fantastic though. That's great. Yeah. So look, because collaboration, I will ask one more follow-up about collaboration, because that's a topic that whenever we broach it on the show with people that are collaborating or with people that have done collaboration or about to collaboration, it's one of the more fascinating topics from people that listen in, because for cartoonists that work alone, it feels like terra incognita. They don't know how collaboration can work. They don't know. So in the moments where there is a, I think Brad said it the best way, loggerhead, when there's a moment of a loggerhead, how do both of you exert, let's say, editorial control over one another, or work together to find a shared editorial control? How do you navigate that, both as co-creators and as family? That seems like that would be a tricky navigation at times.
And that's where I think the clicking is the thing to go back to. So working together clicked really easily.
Yeah.
How we work or what the work is focused on, that's where I wouldn't even say I don't feel like we've ever had a real
no,
you're not getting it, donk, 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 loggerhead. More bumps in the creative process of, is this the right time? Or I know personally, it's a tricky thing, and props to anyone out there who's doing collaborative work to begin with, especially when you come in on somebody's established idea and you're trying to, honor and respect that when you're working on somebody else's legacy. And then on top of that, I have the layer, this is my dad, a number of people on the planet that I'm willing to try to disappoint, not one of them. So whenever I would struggle with something, I feel like that made it difficult, because there's a lot of emotional baggage that comes with we all know the creative process. People will say, well, how long does it take you to write a week? And you're like, I don't know, anywhere between 10 minutes and 10 days.
It's true. It's true. Yeah.
But you can't. So you go along, and I'll have 1 week where the characters are just speaking to me. It makes so much sense. It's so fresh and exciting and fun. And then the next time I'm sitting down, and it's Luann stands there. Puddles stares at her. Luann says, I don't know, insert something funny here, Dad.
And throw the punchline.
Yeah, exactly. And scene. Well, that's good. It sounds like, because Brad and I have tiptoed into collaboration recently and found that 99% of our humor is very simpatico, and we know where the other one's coming from. But it's funny how 1% of the time, one of us will be on the straight line, and here comes the other one flying in from a completely different direction. And we neither expect it nor know how to handle when the other one is so far off. So that's why I was just sort of gently probing about collaboration, because it's for us, it's also fun to see how other people do it. It's just, it's hard to be an artist. And in a way, it's even harder to be an artist together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That can sometimes be tricky. Although sometimes when it's working, like with you, Brad and I found this true, there's sometimes nothing better than when you're both sparking on the same idea, and the cumulative creativity is way better than anybody individually could create. And so my sense is that's what you've found, is that your cumulative work is better than any individual contribution.
It is, and partly because we do get along well together. We're so similar in so many ways that there's not a big shift to make to try to mesh. And the tricky thing about a comic strip, of course, is it's a unique form of writing. It's like writing dialogue for a play. That's what you're doing all the time. You're writing dialogue, and it has to be concise. It has to be fit into these little boxes, so it has to be edited down to the bare bones and yet still have some life. It's a tricky thing to do, and not everyone can do it. Yeah. And I think Karen's biggest problem is that she tends to want to just scrape up every emotion and every feeling and every mood and every possibility and cram that into that thing. And my strength, I think, is peeling, simplifying, paring down to, well, what's the key idea here? And that makes for a good gag. I'm usually the one that adds some sort of a gag thing at the end. So between her intuitive attention to emotions and those kinds of feminine details, and my attention to strict storytelling and humor, it results with we get a much better product. And the beauty here is that all those years that I was writing about a female character, what do I know about being a female, really?
Yeah.
Now, the person who inspired the strip in the first place, here she is, and she's writing it, and she's giving it that whole bunch of yummy juice, that
authenticity.
Yeah.
Back to the question about aging. So when this conversation about me maybe joining in came along, at the time Luann was in high school, she was 16-ish, but Dad was sort of feeling a little bit of the similar, I've told all the stories I can tell in high school. Like, they've had every possible dramatic triangle and character introductions, and
how many Septembers can they come back to being
yes.
Makes no sense.
So we had talked at that point, what would it look like if Luann aged up again? And that was really, I think, a beneficial conversation for us to have, because there was a lot of complexity to that, and letting Luann become an official adult in the world, and how to still tell, and this was the hard thing, right? Like, we're a newspaper comic strip and online, but our audience is, and our topics always have to fit a newspaper page. So we have a challenge, because we've got a character who now we think of her as being 19, and there's a lot of things that 19-year-olds are really doing, experiencing, worrying about, and thinking that just don't go onto a comic strip page explicitly. Right. But it was fun to talk together and think about, how would these characters really age? Where would they really end up in college?
Right.
One of the hard realizations was from the very beginning, Luann's two best friends were her friend Bernice and her friend Delta. And those characters had personality traits from the beginning. As 13-year-olds, they had evolved through high school. And at this point, we realized there's no way Delta has become this driven, passionate, global person. She is not the person who goes to the local college.
Right. Right.
That would be so untrue to her, even though it was like this horrible realization that this character wasn't going to stay in the strip, and we wanted her there, but it just felt absolutely false. It felt like a disrespect to limit what this person would really do by making
what their own goals are,
yes.
as a character.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in the same way, we realized Bernice, who was always very academic and structured and brainy, like she would want to be going to a 4-year university and overachieving her way through a PhD. And Luann, who'd been portrayed as never particularly strong in academics, not passionate about a particular topic, like her struggle, like many of us, is, well, who am I and what am I doing again? She probably wouldn't be ready to commit to a 4-year track of some sort. So she ends up at community college, and that was exciting. And now often and going through the 40-year archive, like, man, it was so much easier when we had the core cast of characters. They were at the same school, in the same classroom, with the same problems.
Yeah.
It was all over the place.
So you've written yourself into a corner, is what you've discovered.
The opposite.
The opposite.
We wrote ourselves into a massive universe.
That's true. Yeah, I guess that's a better way of saying it. Yeah, you unleashed the cast onto the world. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, let me switch topics to talk about something different that I love and admire about both of you. So, oftentimes, I have found in my life that cartoonists have a tendency sometimes to be shy, to be introverted, to be quiet, because you don't tend to draw a lot if you're the captain of the football team, for example, But in meeting both of you over the years, like, for example, last year at the Reuben Awards, I saw Karen up close and sometimes from a distance, super warmly greeting and welcoming new cartoonists, new members of the NCS, being incredibly funny on the microphone, off the microphone, holds incredible conversation and conversational power. And when I was younger, I remember one of the warmest greetings I ever got at a cartoonist organization was from Greg at I don't even know if this exists anymore, but the Southern California Cartoonist Society, if you remember that. Mm-hmm. When I got home from college, I was like, I got to meet cartoonists. I need to get out there and meet cartoonists. And I was so nervous. And I think I wore a button-down shirt with a tie to the first meeting because that's how nervous I was. I was like, they'll respect me if I have a tie on. Because Lord knows cartoonists love a tie.
Yeah. You talked like Mickey Mouse back then, too.
I did. Listen, changes hadn't happened yet. Anyway, but in both cases, with seeing Karen up close and seeing Greg up close when I was younger, I had such a warm greeting and so extroverted and such a great public speaker, made me feel so welcome, just like Karen makes folks feel so welcome. And I want to say how wonderful that is in the wider cartooning community, the two of you, the energy that you put out to the wider cartooning community. That extroverted joy and warmth and welcome. It's been so nice to see, both in my own younger days when I spoke like Mickey Mouse, and now as an adult and seeing it with Karen. But to speak to that in terms of how you write and create and have written and created. Do you think your comparative extroversion has impacted the strip or the writing of the strip, and how you deal with things like dialogue and this and that?
Wow.
Well, first of all, thank you. That's very kind of you to say. But I think that's one area where we are not in sync. I think Karen is more of a people person and more of an extrovert. When you were telling your story about her at the Reubens, I thought you said, then I looked over and there was Greg's,
There was Greg with his thumb up his nose sitting in a corner. Yeah, exactly.
And by the way, we all do that. We all, everything we listen to, we try to make it into a 4-panel comic. And all you did was just, you put the punchline in there.
That's perfect.
But I'm not a real huge people person. I can act like it, and I do pretty well.
Can I pause you for a second and just remind you that you owned a robot and would go to Seaport Village and do public entertainment? That is not something that Schultz would have done. Or
that wasn't me standing on a stage doing stand-up comic. That was me being a puppeteer. So I was controlling.
I do see and appreciate that distinction.
You're the man
I see
behind
what
the
you're
curtain.
Yep. Yeah, you're the man behind the curtain. Exactly.
Now I've always been good at. I want to entertain, but I don't want to be the one up there. I want to do it like the music.
Right.
I like to write a musical, but I don't want to be in the show. I don't want to be on the stage.
That's probably a universal that all four of us can agree with cartooning, is that there's a joy in entertaining people, but I'm in the next room and you don't really see me, and don't look over here. I'm not here.
Although you do want people to rush up to you and tell you what a great thing you created, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, can I continue that line of thought? Because the two of you are also among the rarer group of cartoonists, specifically comic strip cartoonists, that actively enjoy going to San Diego Comic-Con. Some don't. Some really avoid it, that either the crowd is too much or the interaction is too much. But in the 20 plus years, maybe 25 plus years that I've known you both, I think 90% of the years, 95% of the years you've been there and enthusiastically have been there. Can you speak to that about like why Comic-Con has been close to your heart and why you continue to go? Because you don't have to go.
No, and I went, the very first time I went was probably back in 1985 when the strip first began. And it used to be at that little civic center downtown in one room. And there were like a dozen guys with their card tables and their comic books spread out on there. And I thought, wow, well, this is cute. I went the following year and they had expanded to 2 rooms.
My goodness!
I thought they've overextended now. They'll
they've changed, man. They got too big. I liked it better when it was 1 room.
Yeah. It was an amazing thing to see, and it's truly an exciting. It's San Diego's Mardi Gras. I mean, it is just such a thrill to see it and to participate, but be part of it and be guests is a huge honor. So and just the people watching is amazing. And then, you get to greet and meet fans, which you don't get to do as a cartoonist. It's a solitary profession. So now and then, once a year, I don't mind getting out and meeting people.
Well, Brad and I somewhat disagree on this because I find that those 5 days at Comic-Con are just enough of a sort of battery recharge that I carry through the rest of the year, even though I am physically exhausted at the end of it. Whereas Brad has decided, it's not necessarily for him most years. But like I get an incredible charge seeing you every year at San Diego Comic-Con. And since this show will air after Comic-Con has already happened, we can talk a little bit about what you have planned for it. But I also want to retroactively thank you for the steak and wine dinner that you bought me in San Diego. That's really nice of the two of you. And I just want to say that was incredibly kind of you. So thank you retroactively for that at Morton's. That was a delicious steak. I really was grateful.
You mentioned the editing, so that part.
No, okay, let's talk about the San Diego plans that you have, because you gave Brad and I a sneak peek, and I'm delighted by this, about the special one-off that you're doing for Comic-Con this year.
Yeah.
Would you mind taking us through the project and how you're doing it and what you're doing?
Yeah, I think that we talked about this would be fun to share, even though this will air post Comic-Con. So normally at Comic-Con, we sit at the National Cartoonist Society booth with other members, and we get to meet our fans. We usually have a print for that year that people can get signed for just a donation that goes to the National Cartoonist Foundation. This year, we thought it's the 40th anniversary year. Maybe there'd be something fun that we could do. So we have 2 things that are kind of fun this year that we've done as bonus projects. And one of them is in the strip. There's a 6-year-old character named Shannon. And Shannon in the strip, 2 years ago, wrote a little book with Luann. And I'll reveal that part of the reason that Shannon wrote a little book was because we were crunched up against deadline, and I was trying to think of a real simple to draw, simple to write story. And somehow we got the idea of the Shannon writes a book, because it's written like a child's book, and it's drawn in Shannon's cute little crayon wobbly hand. And it's called Dog Friend, Fish Friend. And fans really liked it, and we liked it. We got this really cute story. So we thought it would be fun this year. So we have a special at Comic-Con. We made a little tiny book. It's 4x4, little square book, where we took that 2 weeks of strip and tidied it up and added some color and made it into a little tiny book. And it's so stinking adorable. Because little things are, right? But it's just a super cute little story of Puddles the dog befriending or trying to befriend Monstro the fish.
That is delightful.
And then the other project,
I was just going to say, for folks at home, it is darn adorable as you hold it up. It's so cute. I can't wait to see it at Comic-Con. I hope you'll set one aside for me. I'd love to come buy one from you both. It looks delightful.
Yeah, we will. And we thought we do have, Dad had mentioned our fan base, and we do have luannfan.com. We have people who come to check out. We do monthly little featured collections of storylines and some little behind the scenes scoop for folks who get a free monthly newsletter. So if we have extra copies of the book, we'll probably make it available to those little fans if they want to snag a copy. But for you, I will set one aside. You don't even have to be on.
And Brad, at only twice the price, Brad. That's the kindness. That was.
They're $400 each. So
Plus a steak dinner
right now that you're going to buy one.
Plus a finder's fee, right? Don't forget the finder's fee.
Although in your case, Dave, I'm sure they would accept a Morton's gift certificate.
There you go. There you go.
There we go.
Yep, we can make this work.
So with in all likelihood, they will have sold out at Comic-Con. But if you'd like to try, if you're listening at home and like to try to get one, that's over at luannfan.com. So luannfan.com. And I'll say that again before the show, and we'll have that in the show notes. But hopefully, fingers crossed, there's still some left over for folks that want to snag them. Yeah. But I will definitely be over to get one at the NCS booth at San Diego. So now there was also a fun thing that we talked about before the show that I would love to probe about for a second, which is a 3D model of one of the Luann characters. And I would love to hear about how that happened, how that got started, because I've done it once in my cartoon, and I found it fascinating to see a 2D character try to be represented in 3D, because you think it's going to be a cakewalk, and it's not a cakewalk. How was that process for you?
Yeah, it's interesting. In the strip I have, Luann has a little dog named Puddles, and he's the little round, typical cartoon dog. I gave no thought to its design in terms of turning it like for animation or for a 3D thing. As I've heard that Charles Schultz didn't either. When they made that first special, they found out Charlie Brown couldn't put on a hat because his arms are too short.
I've never thought about that. Did he just have to appear with the hat on in one of the scenes? I
think they had to cheat somehow with having him put on the hat with the backhand so you don't see it happen or something. I don't know. Anyway.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
So there's a little group of cartoonists in this North County area, creative people. And one of our members is a guy who used to be a car design engineer guy, Chrysler, I think. And he's now retired.
I thought it was Cadillac.
Oh, Cadillac. Yeah. And he was one of the ones that would make those, the detailed clay models and all that. So he's highly skilled. He's retired, and he has this garage that he has 3D printers and clay and blah, blah, blah. And he was making tiki heads for sale. But he wanted to do something. He thought, what about trying to get a 2D character and make it 3D? And he loved the Luann comic strip. And so without my knowledge, he started fiddling around with this sculpture of Luann and Bernice and Puddles on the bed, and it was this whole big thing. At some point, Puddles got separated out and made bigger as a sort of a prototype idea. I mean, I wasn't part of any of this. And next thing I know, this guy, they're 3D printed and then hand sanded and finished, hand painted. The nose is shiny paint, and the ears are matte paint, and the eyes are shiny, and the eyes turn. They have little magnets that hold them in.
Oh wow!
A little dog dish. I mean, it's an amazing, beautiful piece of work. And he's done 20 of them and plans to do 20 more. And we'll have the first 20. Well, when this airs, we will have had them at Comic-Con.
Yeah.
So it's been amazing to see how to take a character and turn it and make it work,
And I want to clarify that while Tony started this process just out of his own curiosity, there was a point this group of locals were connecting and this came up like, hey, check out this little thing I've been doing for fun. And so Deb did get to go over and start being involved and give really interesting feedback on things like, well, no, I think the back of the eyeball, because when do you see Puddles as these like round eyeballs that sort of float over his round head and his round body? Like, what does that look like in 3D?
Right.
Does it have a lid on the back? Is it just a a big bald eyeball sitting there,
Yeah.
What's the angle of the tail? How do you change the peak of this and that? So,
because in cartooning, the devil is in the details, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Try to draw a picture of Snoopy, and you can't because the slightest little variation.
And the whole thing falls apart. Yeah. And having gone through a similar process myself, I have to say too, it's both really illuminating as a cartoonist and also kind of super humbling when a 2D drawing that was always meant to be a 2D drawing, like you nor I ever had intentions of bringing it to 3D. And to be fair to past us, we drew it to be seen from 3/4, from profile, and then rarely from straight on. That's what we designed that character to do. And I find it, the one time I ever had a character brought to 3D, it's really illuminating to see all the considerations that I never made. Like, I don't know what it looks like from straight down bird's eye or from worm's eye view. Yeah. And then the humbling part is, I really did not design a character that can be turned. That was the humbling part for me. This is really not designed to be turned around. This was meant to be 3/4, 99% of the time, and maybe straight on once in a blue moon.
Well, I think
did you have a similar?
He has big round eyes, right?
Yeah. And so for me, the duck character was the one that was 3D-ized. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but And for the most part, it's a forgiving character because it's kind of a bag of sand. It's a yellow bag of sand, if you think about it, as a character. He's very flexible. But even then, there were so many choices in 3D where as soon as it was made physical, I was like, well, that's not right. And they would come back to me like, well, what is right? I'd be like, thinner? And I'm doing air quotes, I don't know how to describe this. I know it's not right, but I don't know. I don't have the chops. And it's for me, it was sort of humbling as a cartoonist that I just didn't have the tool set to I got better at doing it in terms of working with a 3D artist. But it must be fascinating for you to have it presented whole cloth to you and be like, here is the finished one. And you're like, yeah, that's great. I love it. That's delightful.
But it is true. If you turn it a certain way, like from the back, it looks totally goofy. It's got these white eyeballs sticking up on the top from the back view. Yeah. It's just unavoidable. There's no way to do it. So, it was humbling. And I realized, I guess I'm never going to get a call from Disney to do a full length. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's funny because Pixar had the phone off the register, but then they're like, he can't do a turnaround. We're putting it back down.
You just shot yourself in the foot there. Dang.
Does Pete Doctor listen to this podcast?
We'll make sure to distract him when this one airs, so he doesn't hear that part. Or we can edit that out.
I was just kidding about the eyeball thing. It's incredible.
Pete, no problem is unsolvable. Pete, give us a call. It's 999 Klondike 999. Well, anyway, friends, I want to say a huge thank you and congratulations to you again on 40 years of this tremendous accomplishment. It is a genuine truth that Luann in my teens and 20s was such a formative part of my own cartooning journey, and I thank you for that. And I thank you for your continued friendship and the gifts that you continue to give to cartooning, both through the NCS and on the page. And both Brad and I are so grateful for you joining us.
Thank you. It's very nice of you. I didn't know any of that, Dave, about my profound influence on your career. I didn't know that.
Did I honestly never tell you that? That's a fault of mine then.
No, and I've never gotten any of the checks.
I knew there was a hammer that was going to drop there. It couldn't have just been humility. I knew there was a joke. That's 40 years of joke writing right there, Brad. Is right. There's no sincerity that can't have a punchline added onto it. Is what we all know as a comic strip cartoonist. So yeah.
No, thank you for having us. It's been an honor and a pleasure.
Yep.
Well, you are wonderful. And for people listening at home, don't forget luannfan.com, LUANNFAN.com. And thank you both for everything that you do and continue to be awesome. You guys are great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And one thing I just want to put on the end of that conversation, because I always got it wrong. For some reason, I always want to put an E into Luann's name. There is no E. It's just luannfan.com, LUANNFAN.com. And they do a tremendous job with that website. It's fantastic.
Absolutely. So if you're new or old reader, both for getting the fun stuff that we talked about at Comic-Con and checking out all the upcoming activities, and a reminder for the San Diego Comic-Con Exhibit Museum, you'll find information that luannfan.com is the place to go. And on that note, I want to give one last final thank you to Greg and Karen for their kindness for coming on the show. That was a tremendously delightful talk.
It was fantastic. You've been listening to Comic Lab, the show about making comics and making a living from comics.
Your hosts have been my ever delightful friend, Brad Geiger. He's the co-owner of Cracker Barrel, and he's the editor of webcomics.com and the creator of Evil Inc. at evilcomic.com, and the co-host of the fantastic new drawing show that's burning up the charts over at wrongwayshow.com.
And my close personal friend, Dave Kellett, the co-director of the comics documentary Stripped, and the cartoonists of Sheldon at sheldoncomics.com and Drive at drivecomic.com, and another one of the three handsome co-hosts of the new drawing show at wrongwayshow.com.
And the Comic Lab theme song is used with permission from Andy Creighton at theworldrecord.net. And this episode was edited by the ever wonderful, ever fantastic Matt Woodard of Woodsong Productions over at www.woodsong.media.
If you love Comic Lab, you can rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts, and you may hear your review featured on a future episode. And don't forget to give us a 5-star review on Spotify, where we are burning up the podcast chart.
And Comic Lab is made possible by your support at patreon.com/comiclab. So we will go ahead and say that twice. Patreon.com/Hey Cracker Barrel. If you're looking for sponsoring a podcast, we're right here. We're right here, Cracker Barrel.
We will work for grits. So, Dave, who was your favorite Godzilla character? There were so many ancillary characters in the Godzilla universe. Who was your favorite?
I always loved, because it was such a dang left turn and a non sequitur, the two little fairy girls that could summon Mothra.
Yes.
What was that nonsense all about? It didn't make a GD lick of sense.
It made no sense.
It came out of left field. There was like, what? There's fairies, and also they can summon Mothra. Mothra was great. I will tell you who I never cottoned on to, because I just never understood it. It was King. Am I going to say it right? King Ghidorah?
Well, it's been pronounced one of either way, because they had to do the lip sync differently. So depending on the movie, so it was either Ghidra or Ghidorah, which 2-syllable or 3-syllable. As
an ultimate Godzilla fan, which one is your favorite? What's the pronunciation?
Ghidorah. Yeah.
Okay. So let me ask you, who is the favorite and who is your least favorite? Because there's also been some weird ones, Jaguar, and there's been some weird villains in Godzilla.
King Ghidorah was in fact, I even go a little bit towards Mecha King Ghidorah.
But there's a Mecha King Ghidorah?
Godzilla kills one of the heads. And it's just dangling at one point. So some mad scientists or something take the head off and then replace it with a mecha head, similar to Mecha Godzilla. And so it's Ghidorah with 2 organic heads and 1 mecha head. And I think that is just off the hook bonkers.
I have to ask you this as a Californian, because I think it's not the case, but in early 1960s Japan, was weed legal? Because that is a crazy, like, what is that writer's room? What is that pitch? Like, all right, what do we got, fellas? Okay, so the head of Kingdom, one of the heads dies. Okay, great. Yeah, good. We're all on board on that. What do you got? What do you got there over there? Okay, we sliced the head off. Yeah, sure, great. Yeah. Now there's 2 heads. We replaced it with a mechanical head. Yes, okay, great. Yeah. That movie writes itself. That's great.
Run. Yeah, we can write that script. Yeah, I think it was literally, they did Mecha Godzilla. It was a big hit, and then it's like, okay, the mech stuff is selling. We've got to do more mech, and then they brought mech into Ghidorah. It was a brilliant move.
It's like DC Comics with gorillas in the 60s. They're like, everything's got to have a gorilla on there.
Yeah.
We're all gonna.
And by God, it worked. There's a reason they kept doing it. It worked.
Yeah, it did. And listen, it's still working, because Brad is buying T-shirts at Bad Axe, Michigan for $12 of fantastically drawn Godzilla. It does look fantastic, by the way. But I also say, when you have that shirt on, I'm going to request of all the ladies, please form an orderly line. Yes. He is spoken for, but listen, he understands that the shirt has drawing power, so he gets it.
Listen, I got news as somebody who's still trying to lose a little bit of weight. If you want to look smaller, there's nothing dumber, dumber than to put a big kaiju on your chest. I caught myself in the mirror. I look even bigger than I look in originally.
Listen, I won't say that I'm not seeing all the details of Godzilla.
Every scale.
Every scale and wrinkle. Yeah, there we go.